welcome to more Monmouth Musings, and we're here with Middletown Mayor Gerry Scharfenberger. I'm Art Gallagher, and I want to welcome Mayor Scharfenberger to more Monmouth Musings, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, and I know you're a busy guy.
Thank you, Art.
For being here.
Great to be here.
Yeah, and you're at the end of your, or close to the end of your second term.
Correct, right.
And you're running for re-election again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So and right now you're in the middle of, it's been quite a year. I mean, you've been on the governor's transition team.
Mm-hmm.
You've been back and forth to Trent numerous times. I heard you on the radio the other day about, I don't remember what it was about, but you've been busy.
Right.
Yeah. But right now, Middletown Township Committee's focused on the budget for the current fiscal. Is it for the current fiscal year or the upcoming fiscal year?
Current fiscal year.
Okay. And how far into the year are you?
Well, we had just introduced the budget, so we.
What's the fiscal date? So.
Well, it's calendar year.
It is calendar year.
Yes.
So you're 6 months into it and you're still
Right.
working. Okay.
Right.
How does that happen? Why is it that you're still working on a budget that you're 6 months into?
Well, this isn't limited to Middletown. This is
Yeah.
sort of a phenomenon that's happening across the state for several reasons. One of the reasons certainly is we weren't really sure of how much municipal aid we were going to get from the state. That's always sort of a wild card. The second thing is it takes a while for the state to approve your budget, which you need before you can adopt. So there's a lot of reasons. The days of adopting a budget in March, are probably over until the system is fundamentally changed.
So most townships don't approve their budget before the year starts, or
There's none that I know of. In
Okay.
fact, every day in the headlines you see another town introducing or adopting their budgets. So this is sort of the time when a lot of towns finally, get the numbers together, and there's certainly things that are changing. Sometimes outstanding contracts. There may be a multitude of reasons why you can't, have a budget earlier in the year. That's not to say that we don't have a budget. We have temporary budgets, and in many ways that allowed us to really keep a close eye on expenses. Just to give you an idea of how well it worked out having temporary budgets, we were on track after 42% of the year was used up, but we only used up 76% of what was budgeted. So we really kept a close eye on the expenditures for those temporary budgets.
so 42% of the year would be what, around 3 to 4 months?
Yeah, end of May.
And you'd only spend 3/4 of what you thought you were going to spend.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we really kept a close eye, and the department heads did a really good job of trimming back. We're always looking for ways to cut expenses. So, the temporary budgets are just mini budgets until you get to the main one. But
Okay.
it worked out really well for us.
Good.
Some snowstorms we could have done without. That was sort of a left hook out of nowhere.
Yeah. How much did the snow removal cost last winter?
That was quite substantial. It was almost $1 million.
And some of that's in this calendar year.
It is.
Most of it probably.
Yeah, quite a bit, because that's when the major storms really hit.
Yeah.
And we had 4 major storms. We had 3 minor storms, and there was 1 or 2, nor'easters thrown in for good measure. And there's no way around it. It's an emergency situation.
Right.
It's public safety, so you really can't skimp on that. And unfortunately, they happen on weekends a lot, and we all know what happens then.
You got to pay people overtime? Or,
Sure.
Yeah.
Overtime, and then you bring on outside contractors.
Uh-huh.
So there's a few different things that happen in that.
So it's about $1 million for snow removal from this past winter. What would a normal winter be? Not that we've had normal winters recently, but
Normal, I believe, somewhere around $700,000-800,000 you would budget for that.
so it's about
if you go over.
between 20 and 30% higher.
At least it's probably well beyond that.
Yeah.
Actually, I should clarify that it's $900,000 over what we had budgeted.
Oh, it's 9. So it's almost $1 million more than you
Yes.
budgeted.
Yeah.
Not just okay.
And the thing is, when you put together these budgets and you try and project things like that, you sort of go by the previous years and try and get a history, and then you sort of, estimate from there. And they're usually good estimates, but this was such an unusual, extraordinary year that's, and it happened to everybody. I know I spoke to the mayors around town and around the state, and everybody was in the same boat.
Yeah. So how's the budget coming together? I read on Red Bank Green, I think it was the second best blog in Monmouth County.
Agree with you there.
That Sean Burns, who's on the township committee and is one of your opponents in this upcoming election, was critical of the budget as it's been proposed so far, saying there was going to be a 13% increase in municipal spending this year?
Well, over last year, no, that's not exactly accurate. Last year, our budget was around 62 million, and this one, the introduced is 64.9, I believe.
Uh-huh.
You know, so that percentage-wise, and if you really look at what's driving this year's budget, it's one-shot type events. $1.8 million for the state pension contributions
Right.
that we have to make this year. The $900,000 for the snow removal. That's an extraordinary event. Certainly the retiree payouts, almost $1 million. So all of these things put together, if you take those one-time events out,
Right.
we would have actually had a decrease in spending and a slight tax reduction. So now this is just an introduced budget. We're going back and we're going to make further cuts to it, but we had to get it introduced to get it to the state in time, for a reasonable adoption.
So you're roughly $2.5 million over last year.
Yes. That's
With the pension contribution you have to make every year, right? Well, in previous years they've let you not make it, but it's an
Right.
ongoing expense.
Well, last year the state mandated that we put it off. That was a
Okay.
state mandate. So we had to, although we have to do it this year. And such an extraordinary number like that that's why we call it a one-time expense like that.
But is it higher this year because you didn't make it last year, or?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's-
but the pension expenses are probably going to be around 1.82 million bucks every year unless they change the pension system, right?
Well, that's what we have to see, and there's a lot of variables out there, a lot of uncertainty. I think in a good way because we need this change. It's just that the change is sort of not very clear on what it's going to mean to us down in the trenches here.
And by the change you're talking about the Governor Christie's reforms in
Right.
Trenton.
Right, and I just have to say about the governor, I'm a big supporter of what he's doing, and it's almost hard to grasp the enormity of what he's doing because we're so close to it and it's happening so suddenly. But I think when you step back and look at what he's doing, it's something that's very painful. And there's a lot of things I don't like about what's happening, the cut in municipal aid, but I certainly understand it. And I think we're going to look back and be very happy that at this point in time, he took the bull by the horns and
Right.
did what he had to do.
In this current budget, how much municipal aid was cut?
We were cut $1.6 million.
So you lost $1.6 million,
Mhm.
and you got a $1.8 million pension boost. You had $900,000 more in snow,
And the
and
payout.
how much you're paying out for retirees this year?
Right.
Why are you paying out for retirees? That's not. Well, how come that the pension system doesn't do that?
Well, this is the extraordinary event of this year, and I think it's a lot more perception than reality. That a lot of people who've been with the township a long time, concerned about what may happen in the future to their pensions, their contributions to health benefits, decided to retire early. And a lot of them I know were not going to retire for several years.
Right.
Now, what happens when an event like that happens is you usually budget maybe $300,000 a year, $250,000, $300,000 a year in the normal course of a budget
Right.
to allow for people to retire for these sort of pensions,
Mhm.
sort of payouts. Now we have almost $1 million in payouts. That's 5 times what we normally, and there still may be some other folks retiring before the end of the year that will have to pay out.
Almost $1 million bucks.
Yeah, so, and we had no way of seeing that coming because, first of all, we didn't know who was going to be the governor. We didn't know what that governor was going to do as far as changing the statutory landscape.
Right.
So one of the things that we had to adjust to was this sort of payout. Now there's been some legislation that's been recently passed 2 days ago that will allow us to stagger that over the next few years. Now the beauty about that is it's not really a deferral in the true sense because those people would have been retiring incrementally over the next few years. So it just allows you to continue that incremental payout without having to take on the whole cost all at once.
Okay, but they've got pensions that the township and I assume them have been paying
Right.
into over time. Why are they getting a big chunk when they leave?
Well, this is contractual payouts for unused sick time, unused vacation time, things like that. And when you have 20, 25-year veterans there who are on the high end of the pay scale, it could be quite substantial into the 6 figures. And this is something that, again, in the grand scheme of things, I think the governor is looking to help put a lid on in the future. But for right now, we have to deal with the hand we've been dealt.